Cliches retire, we set them free, shaking the ground with epiphany. Fresh thinking loud, it's our decree. Unconventional wisdom dancing on the beat.
Hello there. This is Kim Miller-Hershon, Kim Miller-Hershon Coaching and Consulting. You are listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I am so excited because I have my friend here, Steve Perry. His company is called The Well Recruiting Solutions. Steve has a really interesting business model that's super niche. And I know that you're going to learn a ton from him today, and so am I. So let's jump right in. All
Yeah.
right. So welcome, Steve.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us about this unique, incredible business that you've started?
Kim, thank you so much for having me. And first off, I just want to thank you because I know the amount of work that goes into producing, marketing, and building this podcast. And then you just so generously share it with other business leaders. So thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so our business, we are very niche. We serve growth stage wealth management firms from 5 to 100 employees doing a few $1 million a year up to about $100 million a year. And we hire for them advisors, we hire executive leadership and management and support staff. And so we're placed in as a premium service. So we're not the cheapest, we're probably not the most expensive, but we serve that market. And so we've helped almost 100 firms over the last 18 months with their hiring needs in that space.
And you are uniquely qualified to do that, right? So tell us a little bit about your journey because
Yeah.
it's a really interesting one as well.
Yeah, thank you. I'm 39 years old. When I was 20, I started my career in financial services as an advisor at New York Life Insurance Company. And so I was a 20-year-old in their college intern program up in Anchorage, Alaska, which is where I grew up. So I spent 5 years as, well, a life insurance agent turned financial advisor, had all the investment licenses. My focus was really on retirement planning. I had a few hundred clients, and then I realized I want to move out of Alaska. And so my options were to move wherever I wanted and start over from scratch. And as every business owner knows, starting over from scratch when you got to the 5 year point is like the last thing you want to do. Or I could enter their management program and start building a team. And if I did well in that, then they would move me somewhere to run an office. And so I did that. So I grew a team from scratch to about 40 advisors over a 5 year period. Was a partner in the firm, was the youngest partner in the country, and then made senior partner, was the youngest senior partner in the country. And then ultimately they gave me a promotion to run my own firm in West Texas. I just turned 30 years old and was the youngest managing partner in the company. And then I spent 2.5 years there, grew the firm from about 40 to almost 100. And then they moved me to Minneapolis and I ran the Minnesota office, which was about 125 people. So I spent 17 years there as an advisor building my own practice. And then 12 of the last 12 years was as an executive, but I was running their company. It wasn't my company. And so just the typical corporate carrot, they held a carrot out there and they were paying me $900,000 a year to run their business. And that was not why I got into it. And thankfully, I looked up after 17 years, Kim, and my wife and I, we talked a lot about it, prayed about it, and we felt like God was calling us to that next stage in life and to step out in faith and do something different. And so after 17 years, I left. I thought I was going to buy my own firm, acquisitional entrepreneurship. I had swore if I was ever going to go into build my own business, I wasn't going to start from scratch. I was going to buy one. And I went to do that, and the deal fell through. And so I found myself retired. In fact, I remember we sold the $2 million lake home and the Maserati and the Escalade. I went to go buy a $10,000 cheap car and I'm trying to conserve as much cash as possible. So I get a loan for it. And then I realized, oh crap, how do I get a loan when I don't have a job? And I remember filling out the loan application and actually putting retired on there. And so I was 37 years old and retired for a couple months while I figured out what the next step was.
And here you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's ask the random question.
All right.
Okay. If a genie offered to tell you everything about your future, would you accept? Why or why not?
Definitely not.
Okay, say more.
Yeah. First off, I'm a growth-minded individual that I believe I'm going to get 1% better every single day. I know you help people do that, right? And so the compounding math of that has it that what I'm doing 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now will probably be extremely overwhelming to Steve Perry today. And I don't think he's ready to know the depths of that because I got to grow into that person to become that person. So that's the first reason. The second reason I would say is my philosophy now. Like I just got done with quarterly planning with my business partner. And typically we run a 12-week plan where we lay out what are the steps. We use a 1-3-5 process. And this is the first quarter where I said, you know what? I don't want to do that this quarter. I actually want to take it a day at a time, a week at a time. For me personally, it's like, for God, what do you want me to do this week, this day? But really, from a macro perspective, it's like, what is the most important thing we need to be working on right now? And take it a day at a time, which is really counterintuitive to conventional wisdom, as your show is about, that it's going to be so different 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, that I don't necessarily want to have such a long-term focus. I want to focus on operational excellence and doing what we need to do today.
Okay, so that sounds amazing. First of all, you said you usually use 1-3-5
Mhm.
planning, although I know that you're not doing it right now, but I'm
Yeah,
sure you listener are wondering what that is. So
yeah,
tell us briefly what that is, please.
yeah. Great question. And 1-1-3-5. So the
Oh,
first one, 3 years from now, what's the goal? Where do you want to be? What does it look like? Okay. Second one is what does it look like at the end of the year? So this year. And then from that, what are the three strategies that are the most important strategies that you need to execute on over the next 12 weeks? And they need to be obviously time based and quantifiable based. So they're binary. Did we accomplish it? Yes or no? And then what are 5 tactics under each one of those strategies that are going to get us to accomplish that strategy? Again,
mhm,
time based, quantifiable, binary. Yes or no? Did we accomplish it? For what we've been working on for a while is by the end of 3 years from now, right, we want to be at a certain revenue point. And so to do that, then what do we need to be at the end of this year to do that? And then to accomplish that, what are 3 strategies, right? One is around business development, one is around fulfilling what we sell, and then the third one is around the technology that we want to also build alongside of that. And then each one of those is going to have 5 tactics. Hire a salesperson, train a salesperson, build a comp plan. And so that's the 1-1-3-5.
okay, good. That's really helpful. Let's talk a little bit about not being so structured
Mhm.
where you are right now.
Yeah.
That is certainly unconventional, but I want you to put some backbone behind it
Yeah.
because I don't want the listener to misunderstand
Yeah.
what that actually looks like for somebody to do. You've got a lot of structure behind you, and you have clients and some success that make you available to be able to do that. So let's suss that out a little bit.
Yeah, and very important to give that context, right? Because I've spent 17 years in a very structured daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual plan kind of strategy. And this is the first time where I felt the freedom and autonomy and calling really to do it this way. A couple things. One thing I looked at was at our past, I think we've done 6 of them now since my business partner came aboard. And I looked at them, and although tactically, most everything 60-70% was executed on. By the way, I'm a guy who never hit my goals. So that's something else someone should understand about me. I've always sworn I'm going to write a book called Never Hit Your Goals. And the reason is if I can see accomplishing a goal when I set it and I know how it's going to get done, it's not exciting and motivational enough for me. And so I'm more of a shoot for the moon. And if you miss, you land along the stars kind of person. So that's the context I come from. My business partner, aerospace engineer background, turned fintech COO startup, and now us, like he's the we got to hit it, right? Here's the plan. If I look back, I typically am operating on hitting 60% of the tactics of the fives. My business partner, right? He has his own 1-1-3-5 for the quarter, right? He's hitting all of them by like week 9. But when I look back at it, I'm like, yeah, I hit this percentage, he hit that percentage, but really even more than that, half of them weren't even relevant by the time we got to the end of the 12 weeks. I'm coming from working at a 175-year-old Fortune 100 life insurance company where not that much is going to change over a 12-week period. But in this startup world, that's not true. And so I looked at it, I'm like, man, we spend so much time planning it and then working to execute on it, but then we pick our head up and that's not even relevant to where we need to go to be nimble in this. All right, that's one like backbone reason as to why we're not going to do that strategy. The second one, and I know everyone has a different approach to this, call it your sense, call it your gut, call it your leadership intuition, which is formed by a lot of experiences. For me, I would say more of a faith component in just that what am I called to do today? Just taking the time for me praying, but like, what do I feel the most important thing that I'm supposed to be working on today is and execute that. And for me, just a sense of presentness, which business owners, entrepreneurs, that can be very difficult, right? It's always future minded or fire putting out. And so just being present and what are the needs of my people and my company and our clients and our candidates today? And me as a CEO, what do I need to do with that? So not putting all this distracting future vision bound activities and being able to be present in that. That's some of the backbone behind that strategy, Kim.
Okay. I think that is very helpful. Because what I want to say to the listener, that is a very different thing. Steve is not saying, oh, wake up every day and just go where the wind blows you.
Definitely not.
That is not a strategy. It may be unconventional. It's probably not going to get you where it is that you want to go. So their business has a structure. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. Steve comes from a very regulated industry where your goals are just very clear and they're not always set by you.
Yeah. And we have a company, right? We've got people. I have employees, and that's not their mandate, right? They have KPIs that they have to do daily, weekly, monthly, and hit. Right. So the company is still moving forward. The wheels and the gears are still spinning. But from a leadership and strategy standpoint, my approach to leading this company into this next phase of growth, I'm not following what we've done prescription wise prior. This is a new thing that we're taking. So understanding that.
Yeah, I think that context is also helpful. I was telling Steve before we got on here that I have an online coaching program and I just did a module on the difference actually between leadership and management. One of the ways that you can distinguish between the two things is leadership is forward thinking. It's a one to many relationship, meaning taking everybody to a outcome, a vision, and so forth. And then management is much more what you were talking about. It's much more tactical, it's short term, it's operational. When you are managing somebody, it is a one-to-one relationship.
Great.
All right, let's go to the first thing that we are all dying to know, which is what is one piece of conventional business wisdom that you were either taught when you were a young pup and you thought that was the way that you were going to be successful? And what do you now know, especially running your own business, that you've really adopted that works better for you?
Yeah, this could go a gazillion different ways. So, the first idea, Kim, the number of hats that a business owner needs to wear, right? So, when I first got into the financial services business, right, like I had to do everything, right? That solo advisor is prospecting, marketing, opening cases, closing cases, doing the admin, putting the plan together, running all the calculations, doing the follow-up calls, doing like everything. And now that's specific to financial advisory world, right? But not specific to business ownership, right? Business owner has to do all of those things. And when I started this company, I knew I had to wear all of those hats because nobody was going to do those things if I didn't. And yet, my approach to building the company was to say, the longer I can wait to take a paycheck, the quicker I can hire people to take those hats off of my head. Because I wasn't in a franchise model or I didn't acquire a business that had this is how it's done, I had to do it first. But as quickly as I figured out what doing it was and could document that, then I could hire somebody else. So that is what I did. As soon as I recognized the hat that I was wearing, I documented it and then I looked for and hired someone to replace that. And candidly, the way I did that was by using offshore talent because it was about 10 to 15% of the cost of similar talent in the United States. And I pushed my luck. I tried to hire everything that conventionally people would say you don't hire executive leadership overseas. You just hire low level stuff, administrative. And my third hire in the company was a COO from the Philippines. That didn't work, but I got to figure out what didn't work at a very low cost when I was ready to spend big boy money and do that in America. And what did I need? And could I afford it with cash, or did I need to use equity for that? But that concept of you got to do everything yourself as a business owner, wear all the hats, right? That might be conventional wisdom in starting it off, but then hiring it out as soon as I identified what hats I was wearing so we could multiply my time. And probably conventional wisdom of what is the highest value per hour work that I, as the CEO and founder, can be doing, and make sure that I'm focused on spending my time doing that.
Yes, that was another conversation that we had this morning, which is you're way too tactical in your business, right? Like you're running a $1 million business and you still think that in some ways that is something only you can do. And actually, you know what? I'm going to give you the example because I think we all get caught up in this.
Yeah.
Okay. They're building a new website. It's 99.2% done. And the web developer keeps saying, yeah, I'll get you that by the end of the day. And then now you're 2 weeks down the road and you don't have it. Here, though, is a very important thing, which is you get that feedback from your staff who is very competently running this project. You also are at the end of your rope. You're like, done. We are so close. We just need to get this done.
Yeah.
So then you think that it's your job to knock this person's head against the wall to say it's got to get done. And the idea was sometimes they just need to hear from the boss.
Yeah.
Okay. Not denying it. What I said to her is, what if the person on your team who's in charge sends her an email or calls her every single day until she gets it done?
Yeah.
And who do you think is going to get that done quicker? Because you're not going to call every single day.
No.
I think this idea that we have to do everything.
Yeah.
And what I love also about what you said is right now you are on this journey of figuring out what is your highest value.
Hmm.
And at the place that your business is at, with the foundational structures in place, with the mindset that I am the leader and
Hmm.
I need to bring the value. And so, what is my greatest value today?
Yeah.
I am sure that you are going to create magic.
Yeah. You're super right in that. Like, why would your person hire an employee to manage a project if they're going to take the project back themselves? Like, the whole point is for them to give the time back. So that's great coaching. I love that.
Yeah. So, you've had a lot of financial success. You clearly have had a lot of people management success because you don't go from 45 advisors to over 100 advisors, managing an office of 125 advisors without being good at managing stuff. So, what's one thing that people think you've got totally worked out that you still wrestle with?
Yeah. I am no good at holding people accountable and conflict. That's not me. And whenever I try to enter that proactively, it my interpretation of how to do it properly and what the book's telling me to do is it just doesn't look good. So when I have thrived, it's when I've had team members who are really good at that. And I very quickly empower them to do that once I know they're going to do it properly, professionally, respectfully, right? Because that can be way overdone and improperly done. So that's one area that I will always need a partner in to
Mhm.
have us operate.
Oh, okay. I need to actually have a hat here that says coach,
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
put on. Okay. So I'm going to take exception to
yeah,
what you just said.
yeah.
And I did, if you can't see me, I did put my coaching hat on. And that is that I would love for you to say, I'm not good at that yet. Okay. Because just in the same way that you can't envision where you're going to be 3, 5, 10 years in your personal growth, right? When that genie comes to tell you what
Mhm.
your future looks like, that is a skill that you certainly can develop. And I think you said one of my favorite things, which is, I can't do it like the book. And I'm going to agree with you 100%. I think the formula is, how do I authentically be who I am and have the conversations that are respectful and move the needle and hold people accountable? And actually, I 100% believe that is something that you can learn. It's not comfortable. It's
Yeah.
not meant to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, I think anybody who is, yeah, let me slap that person around, right? That's not somebody
You
you
don't,
want
you
working
don't
for.
want that person. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is not to take the uncomfortableness out of it. Here's, though, a frame that I think is useful, which is that, especially when you are giving feedback to people who work for you, as a leader and a manager, one of your primary responsibilities, aside from growth and outcomes, and your responsibility to people, is
Mhm.
really and truly around their development.
Mhm.
Right. And by not giving them timely feedback, you actually are robbing them
Yeah.
of their ability to grow.
Yeah.
And so it's really not fair.
Yeah. My wife says clear is kind. And that has been probably the most empowering phrase that runs through my head.
Right. You, I think, raise an interesting point, which I think we should be clear about, which
Mhm.
is that knowing what you should do and your ability to do it, maybe uncomfortably, but authentically
Yeah.
and effectively, are two different things. So part of what I would say is that it's really not enough to say, oh, yeah, Steve, go ahead and do that, right?
Mhm.
When you're like, I really can't imagine those words coming out of my
Yeah.
mouth. So
Yeah.
it's really doing both things, having a commitment to doing it, but then also really scripting it and understanding, what do those words coming out of my mouth
Mhm.
really sound like? How do I be respectful to the other person and hold them accountable and
Yeah.
get what I need out of this conversation?
Yeah. ChatGPT has been phenomenal for that. And here's the stuff that I would just spit out of my mouth. You know how I write, you know how I think, you know how I talk. Put it in the words, and then, yes, to your point, like practicing it, role playing it.
And here's the other thing that I would encourage you to also add into that mix, which is, describe the other person. How do
Hmm.
they prefer to
Yeah.
get communication? Because that is the other thing that, when it doesn't go well,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, what happened is we talk to somebody in our communication
Yeah.
style versus changing our style in order to really understand how can they hear it.
Yeah. That's a phenomenal piece.
There you go. That's why they pay me the big
I
bucks.
love it. Worth the big bucks.
All right, Steve. If you could rewrite the rule book on leadership, what's one outdated belief throw out immediately, and what would you replace it with?
All right. So, do you subscribe to anybody's Substacks?
I don't.
Yeah, that I never have. I've never subscribed to a blog. And there's this one guy, I love his writing. And I get like his alerts. I start reading the article, and then it's like, all right, click here to subscribe. I'm like, $20 a month. Finally, it was just so good. This guy got in my head. This is a thought I've always had. And the title of his article was something to the effect of Why I Hate Servant Leadership, or the phrase servant leadership, which I hate that phrase. I hate it. And I've never really been able to articulate why. And he was able to in the first half, but I wanted to get to the second half. So I finally subscribed to it. And it, like, on its head, it looks so good. It looks great. Like, servant leadership, be humble, lower yourself. And that concept, I don't like it. I would change it. And here's the reason. I'm not saying don't serve your people. I'm not saying don't be humble. I think you should be humble in everything, right? Assume positive intent, lower yourself, like all of that. But I think to the people who've had the biggest impact in leading me, they knew when to be the boss. They knew when people needed someone to take charge, to take control, to plow through the muck and the unknown and the uncertainty. And it wasn't democratic, everyone vote for what they think is the best strategy. No, we need someone to take us through that. And so I would probably remove the idea and the concept of servant leadership. I would instead redefine what maybe powerful authoritarian leadership should look like. But I think servant leadership has created an environment of a lot of weak leadership.
I love that. I would agree with you on that one. Yeah. To be fair, I think people misinterpret what servant leadership actually looks like. I have definitely had clients who subscribe to that. They drive me out of my mind for the exact reason that you just said. They think that stepping aside and not being a presence, it is somehow servant leadership and letting other people, like lifting people up from the bottom. I would agree with you. It doesn't work. You need a strong leader and you need somebody who can get all the inputs and be decisive and then stay the course,
Mm-hmm.
iterate, be adaptable, make changes as you need it. Somebody's got to be making the decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. All right. What's one unconventional habit or mindset shift that's helped you grow your business?
Yeah. So in growing our company, I really subscribe to focus on your strengths. So a lot of people want to be well-rounded. They want to spend time developing their weaknesses. And what I realized is that life is short and there's a certain point to where there are diminishing returns for working on our weaknesses. And I would guess if you maybe put a number on it, I'd say somewhere around 25 to early 30s. Once you're there, I think you should spend the rest of your life focusing on maximizing your strengths. I believe we've all been given gifts. And the more time that you spend working within your giftings, the more outsized return you're going to get. You, your employer, your team, your clients, your family. And although we're a startup, and the natural thing with startups is you got to wear a lot of different hats. My vision from the beginning has been to hire people that have specific giftings in specific areas and keep their scope of work narrow and deep. And with that, we're going to get two things. First thing we're going to get is phenomenal engagement and satisfaction in what they're doing because they get to spend about 80% of their day doing things that they're incredibly good at and they're incredibly gifted at. So they feel like they're winning a ton. Number two, we're going to get like an exponential return on what they're doing because they're operating within their giftings. And at our peak, we're not there right now, but we had almost 50 people on our team. We were doing like six figures a month in revenue. We're a lot lower now. We're probably 25. Our infrastructure that we have is built to be probably a $15 million a year company, and we're not there because I want people working again in that narrow tranche in their gifting. And as we continue, and we do now have the business development to support that, we got people who are super excited about what they're doing. We got people who are going to outperform any other company at the size that we're at. And we just love doing it. And so that would be probably something unconventional that I just believe in and have tried to operate. Now, again, we're a startup, right? You got to wear a lot of hats, but the goal is to spend the most amount of your time in your gifting.
Yeah, and I would even take it one step further, which is sometimes, even though you can, it's still not the highest value. If somebody else can do it and do it better, right? Then just because you can do it does not mean that you should do it at
Yeah.
a certain point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually great. That's great advice. I really think that is very helpful. in terms of how you look at what you do. And also, what an incredible gift that you give the people that work for you.
Try.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. One last question that I want to explore with you is around imposter syndrome. Many leaders secretly battle with it, and no matter how much success they have. So, this is a two-part question. One
Yeah.
is, when does it come up for you typically? And when
Mhm.
it does, how do you calm that negative voice? What do you do?
With your permission, I'm going to take this question I'm going to invert it a little bit because it's been really interesting. And then I can go back if you'd like.
Oh, you go.
So, something really challenging happened to me in creating this company. So, I left on the top of my game, right? 37 years old. I was the thought leader. I was speaking all the time, like everything. And the second I left that job, the title, my resume, my back, like all of that was nobody. And that hit me really hard, probably 3 weeks into my retirement. I was in the middle of nowhere, Texas, with a buddy of mine who runs a medical company, and he was there doing a workshop. And he goes in and does these educational workshops at like the local country club. And so I was looking to see maybe I wanted to get into that business and kind of start a franchise of it. So I'm shadowing. So I'm sitting in the back of the room, and this kid, this young kid who, was like week one training, he was also training to be one of the guy's sales reps. And he asks me, hey, are you also training to be a sales rep for my buddy Riley? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And like it dawned on me, I'm like, this kid right here, technically on paper, from the world's perspective, has more going on than I do. He actually has a job and he's training to do that job. I'm sitting back here unemployed, on unemployment, like no clue what I'm going to do in my life. Fast forward a few months later, I'm at a conference. And again, a conference that I would normally be in the very front row at, and I didn't want to spend that much money to be in the front row. And I'm sitting in the back, and everyone I'm sitting with is these kids that are like amazing, tons of potential. Like, wish I could hire all of them, but they've invested their money to go to this conference, and they're all working full-time jobs trying to do side hustles to start their own business. Meanwhile, all the successful business owners are up front, paid 15 grand for their ticket. And one of my buddies was up front. I go up to him, I'm like, gosh, this is so embarrassing. I should be up front with you guys, but I'm in the back of the room. And he goes, Steve, I'm going to stop you right there. You are a front of the room guy that just happens to be in a season that you're in the back of the room. And so for me, the imposter syndrome was almost reverse imposter syndrome, where I really felt God was teaching me this sense of humility that it doesn't matter what my title is or what my bank account says or what my tax return says at the end of the year or the car that I drive or all of that. I've had all of that and I know that's empty. That's not the purpose and the meaning of life. And so I had to go through reverse imposter syndrome, which was very challenging. And getting my first paycheck from my company next week after 20 months. This is the first podcast I've been able to say that on. So that's super exciting for me. So maybe I'm coming out of obscurity in that and nothing. It's super rewarding. But I've spent the last or 20 months in this season of on paper, I'm nobody. I got nothing. And that's been a really cool experience to go through at 39 years old, stepping into this next season of life.
Oh, thank you so much for being vulnerable and for sharing that because I think there's absolutely a number of people who need to hear that. Because in a lot of ways, you achieved, especially I think achieving it so young, that feels like the pinnacle for a lot of people, right? It feels like what you work a whole career to get to, right?
Mhm.
And you stepped away from it and now you're creating your own thing. It's pretty courageous, I would say. And congratulations
Yeah.
on the paycheck. That
Thank
is
you. Yes.
very
Thank you.
exciting.
Very. My wife's probably more excited than I am, though.
Yeah, I do appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Steve, just so much wisdom. And again, I just want to really applaud you and just give you my heartfelt thanks for really having a real conversation here. Because I just know that there are many people who need to hear what you had to say. And everybody just remember, if you need to hire an advisor, it's the Well Recruiting Services. We'll put the link in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please do all the things, right? Like it, subscribe, review, download. And I just want to thank you for listening. So go out there and be a better human.
Cliches retire, we set them free. Shaking the ground with epiphany. Fresh thinking loud, it's our decree. Unconventional wisdom dancing on the beat.